Greetings, happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand, but probably not that much in demand. I am Steve Deace here on BlazeTV radio and podcast, taking this time slot because no one else wanted it. He is Todd Erzin, sitting next to me because no one else wanted to do so. And there's Aaron McIntyre producing this show because, you guessed it, nobody wanted to do that either. But you'll notice that Aaron is sitting way away from us because that is where he is most comfortable, sitting way away from his fellow man.
It's nice over here. Yeah.
It is, completely on his own, way over there. Coming up here today on the show, we'll get to Feedback Friday, some really good feedback. We have good feedback every week, but some good feedback this week. We'll get to that next hour. There is our friend and New York talk show host, Shannon Joy. She will be joining us here momentarily for the Deace Group. Before we get to that, a reminder, if you are looking around and thinking to yourself, things ain't right, man. Things ain't right. Make sure you get together then and act on that, all right, with our friends over at My Patriot Supply, because you never know. Let me just throw this out there. All right, USDA said recently, now it's the USDA saying it, it's a governmental agency, so it may not be true, but the USDA did say recently 1/3 of America's annually planted crops won't be harvested this season because severe droughts and fertilizer shortages wiped them out. 1/3. Is that good? Is that
doesn't seem so?
I'm not sure that, you know, we try to grow 1/3 less food every year. I don't think that's a goal of ours, right? Just another example, folks. You never know when. I know if I did My Patriot Supply ads in 2019 and said, you never know when you just won't be able to get toilet paper, so get the backup stash from My Patriot Supply, you'd have told me I was nuts. And then there was 2020 and we were literally playing bingo for toilet paper rolls and fighting each other in the streets. All right, so go to My Patriot Supply right now. Act now, save big on their 4-week emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, even drinks, the full 2,000 plus calories that you need every day, plus free shipping when you go to mypatriotsupply.com. That is mypatriotsupply.com. Once again, mypatriotsupply.com. All right, it's time for the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1, Bleep, Lord Nefarious Says.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women...
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
What I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
The rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes-no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is that a yes? So I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me
like the 95, 95, 95. You know.
You don't believe that a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
And now I'm standing next to the president again, next to a collapsed bridge here.
Hello, in case you didn't know, gay people are literally taking over the national park system. I just helped throw Pride in Yosemite for the 3rd year in a row. But this isn't a Pride for visitors to the valley, this is a Pride for the park employees, of which, as you can see, there are literal hundreds of queer Yosemite employees. We danced, we marched, we celebrated, and we got wet. I am so proud of all the community organizers within the park system who are making safe space for queer people all year round. No planet, no pride. Mother Nature is a lesbian. Goodbye.
All right.
God save the Queen, man.
But in science, we don't typically do debates. What we do is we write scientific papers, we present our findings in front of a critical audience of our peers to solicit their input and suggestions. But one doesn't typically debate science, maybe the one-off discussion of evolution versus creationism and that sort of thing. But that's not what we do in science.
I always say that I've never made an HIV diagnosis in someone that hasn't somehow related to stigma. I think Mpox is the same. So really, stigma tends to be a barrier to testing, a barrier to vaccination. And so, really addressing stigma intentionally and making sure that we get the word out in a way that supports people's joy as opposed to, calling them risky. So I think, one of the things to think about is that, one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of a great festival or Friday night.
When they got here, they discovered someone had died and also found that several people were hiding children in a back room. Tonight, 4 children less than 10 years old are in DCF custody after authorities and public officials say they were found in an apartment with 6 cross-dressing men, sex toys, drugs, and alcohol. Firefighters discovered them after one of those adults died at the apartment.
It was obviously sickening, to hear from those that were there at the scene describing what they saw and the actions of the adults that were in the room.
The apartment was in extreme unsanitary conditions. All adult parties were being uncooperative and denied having children in the apartment.
Drugs, alcohol, drug paraphernalia, sex toys, etc. And so they were concerned. They had reached out to me just to make sure that it didn't get swept under the rug.
The governor says DCF is now involved in investigating.
Just heartbreaking. Terrible situation. DCF has taken those children into its care and custody right now.
Look, I'm libertarian enough to say if you're an adult, you live while you live. I may not agree with decisions you make, but we'll love you and love our neighbor as ourselves, as my faith requires, right? But live and let live.
I'm sorry. I was thinking this was one of the funnier ones he has done.
Yeah, you were laughing. I was not.
I was, because you knew it was coming, and I did not. Okay, but the way he just threw in the 95, 95, 95, and then the God save the Queen, man. Okay, I burst out laughing at that, and then we got to the end, and that's the end. Did you guys notice the turn of phrase there at the end? Suddenly, the phrase "cross-dressing men" makes a comeback now. Because if they had called these trans men or women, whatever they were cross-dressing as, people would have lost their collective bowels, right? I mean, all collective turds that you had not already anally bleached out of yourself so that you can go risk monkeypox would have been lost, correct? And so we had to rediscover the original term of cross-dressing men. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
Did you guys pick up on that turn of phrase? Right? And then we, of course, lead with a man who is not one, and is, frankly, the portrait of the boys who can shave, the males who have haunted our pulpits and our public offices for a generation, so that hell on earth, like that story in Boston, could take place in the first place. But with that, Shannon, you get to go first after I just went first. What was the most disgusting thing that you were just subjected to, sister?
Well, certainly the sex party among transgendered individuals and children. And what was interesting to me, just the amount of delusion. You saw the congressional testimony of what was Kelly Robinson, not able to define a man or a woman. But then you fast forward to, they literally raided a sex party with transgendered men, and they seized children at the party, removed the children, and they denied having children in the apartment. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. It's complete delusion. This knowledge that we are ruled by and living under brain dead weekend at Bernie's presidents and senators, and the opposition side is completely tone deaf. Ending the montage with Mike Pence saying, "Live and let live. Go ahead and have your sex parties." I mean, the amount of psychosis that we are being subjected to and asked to just say it's normal is unlike, it's gaslighting to the ultimate extent. And it's unfathomable to think where we could go from here as a nation. I mean, it's only going to get worse because the opposition party is, like I mentioned, completely tone deaf, living in a bubble. They have no clue what time it is. And this is playing out in the presidential election, which I'm sure we'll talk about later in the program. But yeah, these guys who just got raided literally probably minutes ago, and they're like, no, there were no children here. Like, it's crazy.
Todd. It is indeed crazy.
This may come as a surprise because in one hand, it seems like the most clownish part of all this, considering some of the other stuff. But I really think it speaks to, again, the what time it is that Shannon talks about as well as anything else. And it is that, what was that? What park was that in? National Park?
Yosemite, I believe.
It was Yosemite.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
They promise that unless you stop them, you will have you don't get safe spaces. There's no part of this mortal coil that those locusts don't plan on taking over. Mm-hmm. Yosemite, a different, camping, got to travel to get there, things like that. It's just not necessarily right down the street. No, this is ours too.
The desire to desecrate everything.
So this is, this is why you gotta, you can't just Netflix and chill this. You just can't dude bro this thing in some corner and feel comfortable. They're coming sooner or later. And to Shannon's point, especially for the children. It's not like let the children go up, but adults, we have to fight. No. Especially the children. And we seem okay with that. That thing in the park is just a promise that you will have the life choked out of you.
A promise.
But
promise. Can I take off on that real quick?
You bet. Go for it.
A promise. What is a promise? What was a symbol we were given in Genesis of a promise?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
No, that was a good takeoff. I have been reliably informed that if I just repeatedly post on social media, just vote Trump and look at the polls, that is solution enough for everything that you just described.
Yeah.
That is incorrect.
That's not correct?
That is not.
I've been reliably informed by very successful conservative media figures. Not true?
No.
I can't believe they would possibly deceive me, Todd. So you and I may have to reevaluate our relationship.
Yeah, we're going to have to recheck the math.
Okay.
We will.
Aaron.
Dmitry Daskalakis, the White House's resident leather daddy, saying that, hey, not really into all of the precautions and restrictions in the name of public health. Because one man's idea of risk is another guy's idea of a fun Friday night. As our colleague here at the Blaze pointed out earlier this week, you had to attend your grandma's funeral over Skype during Zoom. If it seems like the lie is the point, as Todd likes to say, it's because it is.
Oh, yeah.
You attend, you muzzle your toddlers. You don't get to go see your loved ones and hold them while they die and pass. But Mr. Leather Daddy gets to have some fun doing, bareback on a Friday night. Monkeypox be damned. Mm-hmm. They're lying to you because it's the point. Yeah. They're twisting things because that's the point. The only thing that matters, and they will do this because they've captured every meaningful institution in this country. They can lie, they can twist, they can cheat, they can do anything that they want to, so long as it's within the constraints of attaining more power. And that's what you're seeing now.
Begs a question on a scale of 1 to 10. with 1 being the odds that Trump will finally submit and admit on his own the disaster that is the poison poke, and 10 being the odds that Lindsey Graham will submit to being poked. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Shannon.
Because of the children, it's a 10. It's a 10.
Todd.
10.
Aaron?
I'm at an 11 this week.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. I was at like a 4 until the last minute, and then I went to
Me too.
23. And so I think the average of that is probably somewhere around 11, actually. All right, let's get to issue 2. What was that?
Donald Trump had him a time on Fox News with Bret Baier this week.
Please, could we have it back?
And they asked for that.
Because they have no.
They did ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
"Can you
them
give the
some,
documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right. But why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
So it is a big part of that spending, COVID. Do you have regrets about how you handled that? Because some of your opponents
loved Fauci.
Sure, but you didn't fire him. You listened to him. You kept
he's
him
a
on.
civil service for it. You're not actually allowed to fire him, but I wouldn't let that usually get in my way. You know, it's one of those things.
Did the COVID vaccine work?
It's such an interesting question. You may have saved throughout the world, 100 million people, and you never talk about it. I said, I really don't want to talk about it because as a Republican, it's not a great thing to talk about because for some reason, it's just not.
For some reason?
Yeah, for some reason.
Aaron, start with you. Was Trump's Fox News interview this week a new level of disaster, or is it just me? I'm not going to go to Todd first because I already know what his answer will be. And
Trump is the weather.
Yes, I already know what he's going to say. Yes. So let's go to somebody else first, and maybe let's try to box out Todd. Go ahead. Just being honest.
The walls are closing in. Is this the right-wing version?
No. I just want to know, is that just a disaster, a new level of disaster?
It should be. It should be. I mean, for one, we saw Trump versus Joe Biden on the debate stage, and it was obvious who was there and with it and who was not. Now we're seeing Trump, and he is starting to look different, but he's the same guy at heart. He's starting to look different. He's starting to sound a little bit different. He was back on his heels. Have you?
Yeah, he forgot things. He forgot details. He forgot names. He was back on his heels about his own policies.
Sorry, you tried to go away from Todd, but I'm defaulting back to his answer. It's still the same guy. Still the same guy. So it should be a new level of disaster, but it's not. Now, I will say they did feel defensive. They put out that just sleazy attack ad on DeSantis, calling him Lockdown Ron.
Where they attacked DeSantis for the stuff that Trump said he didn't regret?
Form of, oh crap, we got to shore things up here a little bit. But at the end of the day, this is the stone cold truth. Everybody who already loves Trump loved him more after that, and hated him more after that.
I don't love Trump. I don't hate Trump. I just think if we lose this next election, we are beyond effed in every orifice you could possibly be effed, and the people that we are up against will create new ones to F us in.
True.
Okay?
All true.
And you know, all I hear all day long as they are plotting out, and we'll get more, we'll get more into this in the next topic, as they are plotting out what they're doing in one DOJ indictment, what they're going to do in the one that's going to come, where they're going to charge him with insurrection. That's what they're going to charge him with, insurrection. And all I hear is,
vote Trump.
Vote Trump and look at the polls. His response seems to be, pardon my French, but I can't think of another term. This may have to get edited, Aaron. His response seems to be to post his own version of shit-lib videos on Truth Social. That seems to be his plan. There's no other plan, right? I mean, and you can tell how bad this was because, I've said this going back to when I was on the Cruz campaign. Trump as a standalone entity is not a likable, agreeable political figure. He falls apart on his own. He needs a foil. He needs a foil. He was so desperate for they were so desperate for foils after this interview that not only did they post what you said about Ron DeSantis, which wasn't true. They essentially attacked DeSantis for things that he didn't do. But these were things that Trump said in the exact same interview that he had just done on Fox he did not regret. It might be the most dishonest political attack I have ever seen in a Republican presidential primary is what they did. But now he's out there attacking like Asa Hutchinson. It's like he's looking for a foil. Someone give me a foil. Somebody give me something to play off of, because when Trump doesn't have a foil, he's detestable to the public. When he has a foil, he's indefatigable. He's almost undefeatable with a foil, because there's no level of shamelessness, no level of gaslighting, there's nothing he won't do up against a foil. He desperately needs one. And I think in that interview, you saw that dynamic on his own. Right now, if you look at every polling metric available, we are polling on issues better with independents than we have in probably like at the height of the Tea Party era. And yet in these exact same surveys, his net favorable amongst these people is -40. Why does it matter? Well, because folks, since the modern campaign cycle that we know today began in 1976, listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because it's true. There has never been a presidential election where more Republicans voted than Democrats. Never been one. And only once was there a tie, 2004, which is the last time Republicans won the popular vote. Every single time Republicans have needed independents to win. Every single time. There's never been one where a majority of Republicans voted. Well, Steve, you sound like the rhinos who said we got to move to them. No, I'm not making the same claim. What they were claiming is we could abandon our base and still win. No, you have to rally your base. You have to win your base. You have to unify your base first. And then you go after a broader coalition next. What they were doing is betraying their base and then wondering why they were losing. All right, they were running past first base and already rounding second. Totally different fact. But this is why this matters. Some of you will respond. Well, they'll just steal any. Then stop. What are you participating in the process for? What are you doing here?
Right.
I don't understand that. Then again, let me say this for the fourth day this week. Get off, stop watching this and listening to this. Don't watch and listen to any other shows. Get the hell off political Twitter. Go join a militia, learn aim, teach your kids to shoot, which you probably should do that anyway. But make sure there's a sense of urgency, because you're going to need it. Because if your vote if they can just do whatever they want, they can rob any election they want, then, what are you doing here? What is the point of any of this? It's just a pointless exercise. It wouldn't matter if he was running unopposed, Shannon. We would need a plan other than just incessantly posting on social media, vote Trump, and look at the polls. What is the plan against people who clearly showed, as we will talk about in the next segment, they are orchestrating a concocted plan, step by step. They're following it to the T. What's our plan? What is it?
Well, I think the point is that there is no plan. We know that the Trump candidacy, he's supposed to have the best consultants, the best attorneys, the war chest. He's the front runner. He has the rhino Republicans behind him. He probably has globalists behind him because he handed this country over on a silver platter to them in 2020. Yet this is a joke. To your point, the interview was a joke, and you have to begin to ask yourself, what is the benign, innocent explanation as to why Trump would go kamikaze on his own campaign? And when you look at the body of that interview, first, he didn't turn over highly classified documents, which got him arrested and now indicted because of pants and shirts. Is anyone supposed to take that seriously because he had personal things he wanted to go through? That's insane. He handed himself over on a silver platter. Then he goes on to rave about totalitarian China and how we're going to end the drug war by seizing drug dealers and giving them swift executions here in the United States of America, the guy who signed the First Step Act. and let tons of violent criminal drug dealers out of prison as part of that piece of legislation, which he championed. Then he goes on to quadruple down on his vaccine, saving hundreds of millions of lives when all of the polls are turning. Democrats are turning on vaccines. Republicans are turning on vaccines. None of this makes any sense at all. And when things don't make sense, it's usually because you're missing a major, major part of the equation. And I think that it's time that people very seriously begin to explore the possibility that Trump is an asset of the deep state, that he always has been an asset, whether it's been witting or unwittingly, but he is not of the people. He can't be of the people. This has become evident over the past 6 years. And I think we just need to rip the Band-Aid off and start talking about it.
Can I get in on that real quick?
Sure.
You might think Shannon
as long as anything to box Todd out. Keep going. You bet, guys.
Sorry, Todd. You might think Shannon is a little bit over the top, but this is actually the same analysis that Angelo Codevilla had, I believe, shortly after the 2020 election in that piece. I can't remember where it was.
That effectively he worked as a because of his own randomness.
The deep state found out pretty quick, there's not a bunch of there.
Yeah, there's no plan there. There's no scheme there.
So you might think, Shannon, she's being... No. This is actually, if you look back at some of the things that were written, if you look back at the tenure of Trump, it's clear the deep state, they were very, very afraid right after the election. They were terrified right after the election. And then they found out, oh, wait a minute. No, we can play this guy.
I mean, nobody knew what a Moderna was. They hadn't brought a single product to market until they gave him $1 billion to poison people.
Trump was approached for many, many years prior to running for the presidency by individuals who are some believed to be involved with the CIA to run for president, and that was way before he came down the elevator.
What's your proof of that?
My proof is personal interaction that I had with a New York operative that, we can't prove he's in the CIA, but a lot of evidence points to that. And I can go into it with you guys if you're interested. But he led a contingency to Trump Tower in New York City 2 or 3 years prior to Trump running for president. And they tried to convince him to run for president. Trump declined and decided to do it on his own way. That was Bill Noje, who was a New York State assemblyman, but also just happened to be in Ukraine during the Orange Revolution, also just happened to be in Libya during the fall of Gaddafi, and would just so happen to disappear to Washington, D.C. for weeks at a time. So there's always speculation. He ended up committing suicide in Rochester, New York, after a lot of his story fell apart. That was about, I want to say, a year after Trump won the presidency. I'm not quite sure.
I got to let, I don't want to interrupt you, guys. I got to let Todd talk. I have no idea if what you're saying is true, but I love the fact that you said it anyway, because I want to now hear the QAnon people claim that we are peddling reckless conspiracy theories.
Just a theory.
Just a theory. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all we're doing here. Todd.
A hunch. It's my hunch.
Yeah.
No, I saw Trump debate Biden, who was half vegetable, 3 years ago. And
Adderall is a hell of a drug.
With the presidency on the line, and he lost. So... yeah, this is bad performances with the press, even press he chooses, of course. But Aaron's point says everything also about why it's just the same. Everybody realized that they could, the deep state was scared of him. Then they realized they could play him. This happened on the right and on the left. It's because Trump didn't change. Everybody changed, and in a lot of bad ways, because they realized the game had simply changed. But let's face it, people on the right, people on the left that we like, that we don't like, David French's, everybody at the end of the day, just ultimately what grates about the guy like Donald Trump is because there's really not that much there. Yet he keeps winning everywhere he goes, and it drives people nuts.
I agree.
We found a way to make our peace with it.
Because sometimes he wins for us.
Yes.
So I'll take the W.
But most people, the bottom line is he's beneath them. He can't, so they can't stand them. And no matter what he says or does, they need to destroy him or hate him. He's the same guy.
I just, either him or Ron DeSantis is going to be the Republican nominee. I wouldn't care if their names were Buster Hyman, IP Freely, Johnny in the Hall, Ron Mexico. They got to win. That's what I'm concerned about. We got to win, guys. We got to win. Okay? Exit question. Do you think all the pervasive tranny madness is really just a psyop to grease the skids for Michelle Obama running for president?
Aaron. Of course. That's the only answer. Disappointed in any of you if you answer anything differently.
Todd, Big Mike, yes or no?
I want Shannon's clandestine answer about what's behind that, because I think she knows more than I do.
What did your former, we're not sure, CIA agent say about Big Mike? Big Mike, yes or no?
Listen, I never got that close because it always scared me. So I always observed from far, far away and listened to some of the rumors. But yeah, definitely.
All right. I want Shannon and On, next time you're on, Shannon and On to give me the scoop, Big Mike or not. Shannon and On, you're on.
I gave him some crumbs to go follow, eh?
All right. When we come back, we're going to go from people who clearly have no plan to people who clearly have one and are executing it in a very cold-blooded fashion and right out in public. We will discuss that next. Time to start taking care of your liver now more than ever. Why? Because the latest data from the American Heart Association indicates that adults with fatty liver 3.5 times more likely to have heart failure than those without, and the estimates are could be up to 100 million Americans have fatty liver because we throw everything at them these days, from cholesterol to toxins, alcohols, Tylenol, statins. Still about 20% of the population smoke cigarettes. That's why so many of us have sluggish fatty livers, and it gets worse as we get older. There is a solution. It's the Liver Health Formula. It's an all-natural supplement that contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help to recharge and protect your liver. Manufactured right here in the USA and approved by American doctors, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of nano-powered omega-3 to keep your heart healthy. That's Liver Health Formula with a free bottle of nano-powered omega-3 to keep your heart healthy when you go to getliverhelp.com/Steve. That's getliverhelp.com/Steve and get your free gift and get liver help at getliverhelp.com/Steve. We bring back Shannon and On. We also have Todd and Aaron here with us as well as we continue on with our weekly look at the week that was. Issue 3, the board is set. The pieces are moving. We come to it at last.
After Trump's aforementioned interesting interview with Bret Baier, the morning after that, Judge Aileen Cannon, who is presiding over the federal classified documents case and was a Trump appointee, set an August 14th date for his trial in Florida, mere 10 days before the first GOP primary debate is slated to go down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The trial is set to last for 2 weeks, but the judge is allowing Trump's team to request a new trial date. And then there's this. Hunter Biden is pleading guilty to 2 tax misdemeanors and has struck a deal with federal prosecutors regarding a felony gun charge that'll keep him out of prison. Additionally, former Attorney General Bill Barr is among those who are warming to the idea that the deep state is indeed going to go after Trump regarding January 6th.
Yes, and I've said from the beginning, by the way, I've defended him when I think there's cases that are unfair, like the one up in New York and so forth. And I've always said I think the January 6th case will be a hard case to make because of First Amendment interest, but I'm actually starting to think they will pull the trigger on that, and I would expect it to be this summer.
The sequence of events this week was incredible. I mean, maybe it's a coincidence. I mean, I was not aware that the judge, is it Judge Cannon?
Yep, Aileen Cannon.
Okay. I was not aware that did you guys know, did Judge Cannon say all along she was going to make a determination of a trial date that very day? Because I don't remember. We weren't like on watch for that.
Yeah.
Nobody was.
I didn't.
So again, maybe it's completely coincidental that after he goes on there and essentially incriminates himself and comes up with no better excuse other than I was just too busy to comply with a subpoena. The very next morning, first thing, the judge issues a trial date for August the 18th. 10 minutes later, maybe 10 minutes later, the feds roll out with the Hunter Biden plea deal. My favorite part, and when I say favorite, I mean most infuriating, of that plea deal, he pled guilty to a gun charge. But after he goes through the rehabilitation, I'm a terrible person program or whatever, he can just go own a gun again from the very people trying to take your guns away. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Just one. Well, nothing says e pluribus unum quite like that, right? And now, to me, they have, of course it's BS, but they're going to message it as, we dealt with the Hunter Biden thing, we confronted it. We dealt with him first, actually. He pled guilty. You know, Trump could plead guilty, too. Just agree to never seek national office or run for any office, drop out of the race, he could plead guilty too. And this would all go away. True or false? The guilty plea of Hunter Biden is a clear tell the feds will charge Trump again, this time in D.C. over January 6th. Todd?
Yes, but not for the reasons that I think you laid out. I think this is obviously, if they move Trump to the side, they have to move Biden to the side. Whoever takes Trump's place as the front runner, there's no way they think they can win with the skeleton this time around. So yes, they're going to do this to him, but they don't need to like some semblance of fairness. They don't care. His son is at parties just last night. Everybody sees him. They're not trying to hide him. It's not about fairness. It's not about some leverage on Donald Trump. It's just like they are putting the pieces in motion. The pieces of motion is for an entirely new slate. I don't believe they are doing this to because they think they have to be fair. I think this is all just a political plan to make it to give it the appearance that this is of some political palatability. I don't think that they feel pressure to be fair. I think this is just the portrayal of fairness. Just to clarify, Shannon, go ahead.
So if you start with the premise that the deep state, let's go back to Trump is potentially an asset, right? Let's go back to that theory. And you start with the premise that the deep state or whoever is in power right now really, 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 really wants Trump to be the candidate. For the only reason being that they don't want someone like Ron DeSantis to be the candidate. So I think they have to keep Trump in as a front runner, as the candidate. They want him to win the nomination. So I believe these type of headlines and the arrests and everything splashed over the mainstream news media is an attempt to victim cast Donald Trump because he doesn't have anything to run on. Public opinion is turning against him. He's not the candidate that he was in 2015 and 16. And so the only way for you to get his base to stay attached to Trump is to victim cast him, meaning if they can do this to Trump, then they're going to do this to me. So we need to get behind Trump just for the principle of it's completely unfair and they're persecuting him for political reasons. So I think that's the reason for the headline. I'd be very surprised if they took him out in any way, shape, or form prior to winning the nomination, which I believe the deep state wants him to be the nominee. Democrats, Republicans, and the powers that be.
Aaron, what do you think?
I would agree with that last part. If they're going to take him out, it's going to be after he's the nominee. Or they're going to, follow through on this. It's going to be after he's the nominee. Yeah, I agree. This is pretty much locking in that Trump is going to be indicted in D.C. on some charges related to January 6th. I think they could have, if they wanted to, have done this even without the Hunter Biden stuff, because why not? Why not? But, adding that in there, hey, we'll give you a little, not even a slap on the wrist, just kind of a, hey there, found you guilty of being an adorable little sweetheart. That's basically what that is for the Hunter Biden. But you can hear any number of Democrats on Capitol Hill. Hey, the law applies just, Hunter Biden, the law is even here. Hunter Biden, we went after Hunter. You can totally hear that coming from 100 miles away. So, yeah, he's going to be indicted in D.C. on something related to January 6th. Just what that is, I'm not totally sure about.
All right, I'm going to give you guys a second to think about it, because I'm going to talk about one of our partners in a second, because I want to give you guys time to think about it to answer this question. What is their plan over there at Mar-a-Lago in response to everything we just said? Even their own Twitter grift corps is on there constantly saying they want to put him in prison. We all agree that's exactly what they want to do and will do. So what is their plan in light of that? I'll give you a second to think about it, because you might need some time, because I don't know what it is either. So in the meantime, I'll tell you about our friends over at Relief Factor. Everyone deals with pain from time to time. It's one of the few guarantees that we have, especially as we get older. The chronic pain gets worser, and a lot of times it's because of too much inflammation in the body, and that's why you need an all-natural anti-inflammatory. It's drug-free, but it was created by physicians who can prescribe drugs. And why did they come up with the Relief Factor? Because they recognized that a lot of what they were dealing with from a chronic pain perspective in their practices was because of too much inflammation in the body, particularly in your joints. So try this for just 3 weeks. and it only costs you $20. It's called the starter kit. See if you don't see a difference in the pain in your body in 3 weeks or less when you do. All right, try it for 3 weeks. Why do they offer it so cheap for just for the first 3 weeks? Because about 70% of the time, people stick around long term because of the results they see. So give it a shot. ReliefFactor.com. That's ReliefFactor.com, or call 800 the number 4 relief. ReliefFactor.com or 800 4 relief. All right, back to the question. We're saying they want to put him in jail and in prison. Trump's most ardent supporters are saying they want to put him in jail and in prison. Trump himself is saying it. So then what is the plan in light of this? What is it? Does anybody know what it is? Aaron?
No, I don't. So just based on their actions right now, I think they are totally focused on the primary. I don't know. I really don't know. We've done this for going on 7 years now, trying to analyze the hive mind of Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump and his inner sanctum. I don't know what their plan is. Are they doing anything to show you they may have one? No. And I don't buy the answer either. Well, it's legal stuff, so they got to keep this under wraps for now. When has that ever been true with him? Unleash the Kraken, anybody? I'm still waiting for the Kraken. Mm-hmm. There's never a plan that's just, hey, I'm reacting to whatever I don't like on Truth Social today. There's just that. So I mean, he's out there telling Seb Gorka last night.
Who's trying to save him on the vaccine issue. He won't take the lifeline.
There's that. And then he's like, hey, so what are you going to do to a ballot harvest? Oh, we don't need a ballot harvest.
I couldn't believe he said that.
We don't need a ballot harvest.
I got all the votes I need.
And then enough. I don't know. I don't know.
You got prominent people in his base out there trying to raise money publicly to organize a ballot harvesting operation. He's like, no, we don't need to. I got all the votes I need. We're good.
Oh, my gosh.
Todd, have you seen any semblance of a plan?
Well, he didn't expect to win originally. He won. He continues to have a throng of loyal followers. Listen, you've heard me say from Scott Glenn, Hunt for Red October, the hard part about playing chicken is knowing when to flinch. Well, this is a game of chicken. But Donald Trump, here's one thing I know. Donald Trump definitely has a point where he knows he will flinch. Whether he's accurate about whether that can work or not, I have no idea. I don't know what that point is. But there's a self-preservation point where he will just opt out. I don't know if it means fleeing to another country. I don't know what it means. But in his mind, he has a no-go zone. And that's his plan. Other than how he's going to win, no idea. But because he really had no idea last time how he was going to win, and he did.
Shannon, how would you answer this quickly?
I think it's smash and grab as much cash as you can before the entire place burns. That's their strategy right now.
Exit question. In January of 2025, where is Donald Trump most likely to be? A, the White House. B, living at Mar-a-Lago, either freely or under house arrest. Or C, incarcerated. Aaron.
Mar-a-Lago.
Todd.
Mar-a-Lago.
Shannon.
Wherever his handlers want him to be.
That's not one of the options.
Mar-a-Lago. I'll go the safe route.
Okay. Issue 4. If you could put one current American political figure in prison, after a fair trial, of course. Of course. Whom would it be and why? A current political figure. That's our kicker question this week. Aaron, go.
Merrick Garland.
These are probably all going to be good choices. That would be one. Yes.
Yeah.
Wasn't he at that state dinner with Hunter Biden last night? Or the other night? Right after he just accepted his plea deal?
He's just a mousy, vindictive, greasy-haired little creep.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yep.
I have so many strong opinions on this.
I know. The list is long and indistinguished. Yes. Go ahead, Todd.
Dick Levine.
That's a good one. You bet.
Mm-hmm. All these hospitals have been following his lead, chopping up children.
That's a good one. You bet. Shannon.
I'd say given the number of politicians that Bill Gates has purchased, I would consider him to be a political figure. So I'd say Bill Gates. That is a Shannon contrarian answer that I will allow. As the judge here, I will allow that one. Objection sustained. That's a good one. All right.
I'm just going back to, you guys all thought the answer was Mar-a-Lago. So if everybody here thinks that Trump's going to be at Mar-a-Lago in January 2025, you know that where that likely, again, if we just look at the polls, you know, that likely means we're all going to be in January 2025.
Prison?
Screwed. Completely and totally screwed. That's what we're going to be in January of 2025. Screwed. Predictions. Shannon, go ahead.
I think that we're going to see some action with the Florida grand jury on COVID-19 vaccines, and potentially even some criminal action as well.
I agree with you on that. And you know why I agree with you? How quiet and secret this has been. That it's not just stuff's not getting leaked out there for political. It's been. I mean, I know I've tried to get leaks. I've got nothing. All right. Yeah. This thing is on lockdown, and that tells you they are serious about some form of criminality when it is over. That this isn't just a stunt. You know, it's not just a leakocracy like the Mueller probe was. Aaron.
Yep.
Trump will never return to Twitter. At least not for this campaign.
I said this a year ago, and no one has refuted it. I was told by a very good source that as long as Truth Social is active, he cannot return to Twitter. Remember, Benny Johnson came out after DeSantis's Twitter space and said Trump was going to do one like next week, and nothing's happened. That was a month ago, because he can't. All right, there's the investment arm of Truth Social is a publicly traded company. He would be in default to investors. He'd be in a fiduciary. The last thing Trump needs is another criminal front and more lawyers. And he would be under fiduciary malfeasance to leave that. That would have to shut down, or he would have to be sold and under completely different ownership, I believe.
Are you trying to talk me into changing my prediction?
I will stop. Point taken. You're correct. Todd, go.
In the long line of stupidity that has caused Bud Light, Target, etc. to lose attendance, viewership, the Dodgers, etc., the U.S. Women's World Cup team will take a hit in viewership. Their unrolling of their roster was aided by the likes of Jill Biden and others. People are sick of Megan Rapinoe. This is arguably the best female sports product in terms of winning that is out there in America, and they're like one of the worst in terms of save girl sports, so they're going to pay for it.
Over under on women's national soccer players who like penis. 3. Taking the over or the under? What do you think? I'm going under. I'm going under.
Father of 4 daughters.
Way
Detective
under. Way under.
Cone right there.
My prediction is Trump will take over the lead in the RCP polling average against Biden by August 1st in a clear corporate media psyop devised to encourage Republicans to nominate someone likely bound for prison. That is my prediction.
Kind of already has, hasn't he?
Not in the RCP average.
Oh, not the RCP average.
He'd have to lead in virtually every poll to overcome to a 3-point spread with how many polls they use, and that will happen by August 1. Is I think what will occur.
Yeah, I mean, this is your jam.
I am at this point just picking the most dystopian outcomes and betting those. And unfortunately, so far, it's working out.
Probably better than your Bitcoin investment.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? I'm only down 28% now on that investment, so that's great. Shannon, good to see you.
See you guys.
You bet. Tell the folks over at Shannon and On I said hello, and we will come back with Feedback Friday here in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast, alongside Aaron McIntyre, Todd Erzin. I am Steve Deace, and you are you. And you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the show steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also find me over on Truth Social at Real Steve Deace there. If you're a podcast listener, thank you. We'd love to go to our podcast page one day and find you have left us a 5-star review. If you have not yet done that, please consider doing so. You can also hit subscribe, or if you're an iTunes listener, hit follow. And we appreciate each and every one of you that have done those things for us already, and we want to say thank you to each and every one of you who have. And to those of you that are going to do that for the first time now, thank you as well. Feedback Friday, part 1, brought to you by our phenomenal friends over at Preborn. They're more than pro-life activists. They are a ministry. All right? And as we get closer to celebrating the 1-year anniversary of overturning Roe, let's recognize the over 64 million babies whose lives were taken at the hand of abortion, and we pray for the mothers who still mourn for their children. Preborn honors these precious souls who never had a chance to take their first breath. Who would they have become? We've lost an entire generation. And the unfortunate reality is that the abortion pill accounts for over 50% of abortions now. But every day, Preborn's network of clinics rescues 200 babies' lives, offering love, support, and compassion to hurting mothers as well. Would you consider donating $64 to honor the precious lives lost and keep the precious lives of those at risk safe? Just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby on your mobile phone right now. Pound 250 and the keyword baby. Or you can go to preborn.com/Steve. Rest assured, 100% of your tax-deductible donation will go towards saving babies and mothers at preborn.com/Steve. Again, preborn.com/Steve. All right, you guys ready for Feedback Friday?
You
Let's go.
Jacob Kwasny writes, you guys truly have the most unique show out there. There is literally no other show that can give an in-depth analysis of the GOP primary, proceed to aggressively challenge their audience with a pastor, discuss the ultimate importance of worshiping the one true God and smashing our idols during a 30-minute theological study, and finish with a lighthearted talk about the dude code while debating the most overrated bands. Did we actually do all that on yesterday's show?
Hit all those bases.
Yes, if memory serves, yes.
That's crazy that we did all that. Something is wrong with us.
The day before, we were talking about toilet paper, too.
That is true. Now I know something is wrong with us. All while a beeping noise goes on in the background. Love the show. Keep up the great work. Unique's not always good, guys. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we all went to school with some kids who were unique. You know what I mean? And you're like, unique can cut one of two ways for you. Fair?
Yeah, I think we fit the bill.
So is it a good unique? Is it a bad unique? Is it a unique?
We don't want to ask Donna. How you doing, Donna?
Oh, thank you, Jacob. I appreciated that note. I guess I didn't realize we had covered all of that ground on one show yesterday. That is something. Raul writes, I want to start off by saying Nefarious was a great movie with a lot of theological truths, but I want to address your analysis on Trump most of all. This analysis is based on a common theme, and that theme being, if Trump were to say this, if Trump messaging was, also if Trump admitted his mistakes. All of these comments negate the fact, because of his bad decisions, people died and initiated a trend of tyranny in this country we have never seen. Let me give you a background. I spent over a decade in the United States Army Special Operations Command. Thank you for your service, Raul. I worked in an environment where you don't get a second chance. You play for keeps. There are no do-overs in that game. Apologizing doesn't bring back lives. In my world, for over a decade, you made those mistakes. There is no other chances. Incompetency is not an excuse, and it doesn't matter what you did prior. That mistake will have lasting consequences. Trump was in a position where consequences matter, and incompetency isn't an excuse. Your analysis on Trump is not holistically addressing it at the correct level. There are positions you're not allowed to make such mistakes, and he made them. Help me understand by him apologizing and admitting he messed up that you would change your perspective on him and take him at his word. You're gambling with lives. This is why when we had an unfit commander, he would be relieved from standards fairly easily. No one wants to assume that risk with keeping such a leader. The stakes are too high. For that reason, I really don't understand your logic. I will say three things in response to what you have poignantly put here, Raul. Number one, I want to live sincerely. I want to live in the culture that you have articulated here. I sincerely do. I want to live in a culture of integrity, honor, and accountability. I don't, though. And we don't even have that culture in our military any longer. So I want to state that up front. I want the culture that includes the principles you articulated to exist and to be executed, but we don't live in that culture. Number two, you write about if we had an unfit commander, he would be relieved from standards fairly easily and essentially replaced. We don't have a long list of replacements either. One of the reasons why I sincerely and enthusiastically endorsed the idea. I have not endorsed Ron DeSantis. I frankly want to see him on a debate stage with Donald Trump. I think the reality of this race, I was talking to a friend of mine who works for the DeSantis campaign yesterday, and he agreed with me. I said, hey, if the perception of where you guys stood in because of the polling was better, but Ron DeSantis goes out there August 24th and gets throat punched by Trump, it doesn't matter what your polling, how good your polling was on July what's his nuts or June what's his nuts. This thing is essentially over. And I said the inverse is true. It doesn't matter what the perception of your polling is right now. If you go out there on August 24th and show you belong on that stage and you punch him instead, the whole perception of things begins to change because of that moment. And he agreed with me. All right. After those two, the current options in our command pool, the current options in our command pool are a gathering of Republicans who either hate people like us and or have demonstrated they simply don't have the testicular fortitude to do what needs to be done on any front. And then a party that has become a demonic construct with Bobby Kennedy, whom they will probably kill if he actually gets traction. And even he knows this, which is why he's talking about it. This, again, there's an old saying in politics, you fight wars with the soldiers you have. We don't have a lot. I had a friend of mine ask me today, if Trump is the nominee, what are you going to say the next day? I'm going to say, I mean, I thought I had been pretty clear about this. Have I not stated from the very beginning? I am absolutely going to vote for the guy that overturned Roe over the demonic horde. How many times? I thought I've said this, but let me just reset it. If Trump ends up being the nominee, the next day I'm going to say, the guy that overturned Roe and kept us out of unjust wars and gave us the best discretionary income among middle-class Americans in the 21st century, sure as hell better win. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that, which is pretty much what I just said last hour. But the reason why I, Raul, have endorsed the idea of DeSantis launching his candidacy is because of what you say here. Where else would we turn? We have two people in this race, in the Republican primary, who on some level have demonstrated they are willing to disrupt the current system. One with the power of his persona, the other with the power of his policies. If Trump goes to prison and Ron DeSantis gets hit by a bus, or heaven forbid his wife's cancer returns and he has to drop out, where would we go? Probably Bobby Kennedy's, we'd join his security detail and become his food testers. I mean, where else would we go? You going in Nikki Haley? Going there, Todd?
Probably not.
Mike Pence?
No.
Aaron?
Hell no.
No? Okay. I don't know where we go either. So... Raul, we're kind of sitting here at Valley Forge, bro. You know, we don't have like a legion of meritocracy driven generals that we can just instantly replace one with another. We're at Valley Forge, man. We're kind of a ragtag group here, hanging by a string, trying to get through the winter so we don't die and maybe try to win a longer war. Is that a fairly good description of about where we're at right now?
True.
Yeah. You know, and that guy over there's got holes in his shoes. That guy over there, I've had to bring him back from deserting me every night. You know, I mean, that's kind of what we had at Valley Forge. That guy over there, doesn't look like he'd win many fights, but appreciate his spirit nevertheless. That guy over there looks like he would win a lot of fights, but doesn't have the other guy's spirit. That's kind of what Valley Forge looked like that winter, man. We're just hanging by a string, and that's kind of how we're hanging right now, And then the third way I would respond to what you said is, why would I take Trump's apology at face value? Well, I wouldn't take anybody's apology per se at face value. I mean, there has to be some demonstration of repentance, okay? Like, for example, he would have to then turn around on top of this admission and say, and you know what? Our DOJ is going to launch a probe patterned after the grand jury in Florida or something. I'm just making this up now as I go along, but that's what repentance is an action. It's more than an apology. It's a demonstration, a turning away of that which you knew was wrong and towards that which you know is now, or claim to know now is right. But Raul, this would also be so out of character for Donald Trump. I mean, last night, Seb Gorka, you don't get more ardent of a supporter of Donald Trump than Seb Gorka. Fair?
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. You don't get more ardent supporter of Donald Trump who's sane and intelligent than Seb Gorka, because we can go down the whole like Laura Loomer crowd. Someone just sent me like a Laura Loomer, and I told him I stopped reading when I saw her name on the byline. Okay, so amongst those who are ardent Trump supporters, few are more articulate, smarter, and while also being sane than Seb. And last night he threw Trump a lifeline on the jabs. He refused to take it. He's refused it every single time. The dude stood at the funeral, was a Diamond or Silk who sadly passed away earlier this year. I can't remember which one. But one of them passed away, and the other one called out the jab as one of the reasons why. And he stood there and said, I don't know, man, they told me I was only going to have to be here for a few minutes. This is just going on and on. I want to get the hell out of here. I mean, he's been offered 1 million lifelines that I don't think that this would just be as a simple, okay, fine, what do you want me to say? Now he'd have to demonstrate more, but Donald Trump doesn't have a propensity for giving apologies that are insincere, because he has a propensity for not giving any apologies. All right? So, yeah, I mean, I would be ecstatic to hear one and have it be sincere. It's totally outside of his normal character. Thoughts on how I responded to Raul?
Yeah, Raul, as an act of conscience, if he's become a no-go zone for you, I actually can get that. It doesn't sound to me like you're the kind of guy that therefore says, in David French style, okay, so I'm going to go vote for Joe Biden. I didn't get that vibe from you. So, you got to sleep well at night. Do what you must. I thought you posited the question fairly to Steve, so it seems well-intentioned.
Yeah, I wouldn't really have that much to add. I mean, this is a matter of conscience, as Todd aptly put out. I would say, though, if he does truly humble himself, that would be a different Trump than what we've seen. To the point that I would think maybe things are different with him. Probably not, but at least, you pivot back to what he's done. If we get a reckoning, a come to Jesus moment on the jabs and COVID and his handling of it, that would be maybe one of the first times, if not ever, since Donald Trump was in the national spotlight politically, that we've seen him express any amount of humility. That'd be something, right? So that's kind of where I default to, but I can't fault you. I can't fault you for your line of thought at all.
Randy says, I believe that although Trump derangement syndrome is hugely prevalent in the left media mindset and ideology. I think Trump infatuation syndrome is also prevalent, maybe not with the same intensity, but nevertheless enveloped within the culture on the conservative side. I believe you once framed this as hero worship. Although I am in his corner when it comes to fighting for the heart and soul of America and his strong stances he makes against the ruling class or the deep state, that is the U.S. government bureaucracies and the liberal progressive party. However, using my common sense and more objective mind, I do not espouse him as the savior of the country. Jesus is my savior. For some of my friends and family, President Trump is the only answer. And don't you know, he is the only one who can save this country and is already, albeit doing so covertly. The Trump infatuation syndrome of many has blinded them to his changing his current policy ideology on the pro-life issue, his unnecessary name-calling tactics towards fellow Republican candidates, his ego-centered embellishments, his throwing people who worked for him under the bus, and his inability to do absolutely anything wrong and admit it. As you guys have said, maybe he has even permanently lost some conservatives and Republicans because of the aforementioned. Well, Randy, it appears somewhere, even I've read the poll of Trump's own pollster yesterday, 2 days ago. And remember that I think it was CBS had a poll that 24% of Republicans said they would never vote for Trump no matter what. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Trump's own pollster, McLaughlin, had the number at 20%. Had the number at 20%. So, I think there is a number of Republicans. I don't know what the number is, and do I think election day? Let's say Trump escapes prison, everything else, and we're on election day 2024. It's Trump versus whoever the demonic horde offers up there. Do I think 20% of registered Republicans are not going to vote for Donald Trump? No, I don't think that.
Won't take that much, though.
But do I think 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% won't? Yeah. I do. Yeah. I do think that. I just don't think we can beat idolaters with idolatry. I just don't. And I will tell you, within some of the DeSantis Twitterati, I have seen what I think are the mustard seed stages of a similar outgrowth. I don't know that Ron will ever possess the personality to inspire that level of infatuation, that because Trump has the personality that you add on top of the need people have for a savior, a hero. I don't know that DeSantis will ever have that kind of a personality per se, but I see it sometimes. I just haven't said much about it yet because at this point in time, it's not in the way of what I want to accomplish, which is winning the next election. But if it gets to the point, like if DeSantis were to be the nominee and these people he makes a clear misstep and these people are like, that was the greatest misstep I've ever seen somebody make. Then or when?
Yeah.
Rest assured, I will. Those people who think I'm doing a great job right now, they will not like me and what I will say after the fact. We cannot beat idolaters with idolatry. We can't. And right now, kind of the American political mindset is a dueling, D-U-E-L-I-N-G, a dueling modern iteration of Roman cults. You have what our colleague Orrin McIntyre has, I think, brilliantly labeled the total state for the glory of Rome. The state is in whom we live and breathe. Okay? And that's predominantly what exists on the left, where compliance is the highest virtue. But there is a rising tide on the right, and I think Trump has absolutely nurtured and exploited this for the Caesar cult. The hero that we give the keys to the city to, but does he ever give the keys back, Todd? No, he doesn't. Giving the keys to the city to somebody who never gives the keys back, is that a republic?
That is not. You have not kept it.
At best it's a benevolent monarchy. Okay? No. Hey, man. Would I rather take my chances with a benevolent monarchy over the total state? Yes. But see, here's the thing. I don't have to, because I am a child of the most benevolent monarchy in the history of the cosmos. My king's Jesus. So I already have a benevolent monarchy. I don't need an earthly one. I'm good. That's why I need a Republican form of government, so I have the freedom to go out there. I don't want mob rule of pure democracy either, because I don't trust the people, right? We're total depravity kind of show, right? So I don't just blindly trust the will of the people either. I don't need to take my chances that the king is Harvey Two-Face and flipped a coin and today's benevolent. And, Manasseh is considered maybe, next to Ahab, the worst king of Israel. But there was a period of time where he actually was good. Then he went bad again and sawed Isaiah in half. I don't need to take my chances on a benevolent king or the rule of mob. I've got a king, Jesus. What I need is a republic so I can elect people that represent my views and remove them when they don't. That's the system our founders gave us, right?
Yes.
In fact, they themselves flirted with the idea of a benevolent king named George. Ironically enough, they went from overthrowing a King George to flirting with the idea of reinstalling a king named George. And what did he say? Don't do that, because he was an Aragorn kind of a figure. That's a bad idea. I thought we just fought against that. I won't be the king if you even bestow it upon me. And then he gave up power. Could have been president for life. Gave up and walked away, setting the example again, which is why anybody ever asks me who the greatest president is, it's George Washington, because if he had failed, there wouldn't have been any others. This is what it means to be free in our form of government. Everything else that we would try is an emulation of things that have always failed. That have always failed. For every Constantine you get, for every Red Caesar you get 15 Neros and Domitians. Is that a fair view of Roman history by and large from a Christian perspective?
I might quibble with the ratio.
Might not be 15 to 1. I'm exaggerating.
Yes,
but it ain't 1 to 1. It ain't 1 to 1. Fair?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it ain't 1 to 1. No. So I'll just, it's not a coincidence that the longest running experiment in human freedom in the history of our species is this country, because it was a republic. Anything else, and you'll end up with the rule of elites or elite, or the rule of mob, and you can't trust human nature in either context. Pastor Seth Yee writes, as you've been saying about Trump's need to recant concerning Operation Warp Speed, I likewise have been saying as a pastor since June of 2020 that church leaders should have repented and confessed their sins regarding the lockdown of public corporate worship service. Our leadership never closed our church doors to willing worshipers. So how can we expect a man of Trump's spiritual weakness to repent about the jab and all the harm it caused if God's leaders are not willing to repent and confess publicly the sin and spiritual harm they caused by shuttering their doors?
Absolutely right.
I can't believe we hadn't even thought about that ourselves, Pastor, but
that's of course true.
That's of course true. Absolutely it is. I would be curious if any of you have had your pastors express remorse, like, I shouldn't have done that. We won't do it again. Shouldn't have listened to that. Won't do it again. Won't fall for. I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure some of you have. I would be curious, though, how many of you have.
Come on, most people are still going to churches where everybody thinks we almost all died.
Well, there's that.
Which was never going to happen. Didn't come close to happening. Had nothing to do with the vaccine. That's what people think still.
Aaron, do you know of any pastors that you've heard of?
No.
Say we shouldn't have done that. It was a bad idea.
Remember, Jesus is nice, and so you do nice things, and you don't rock the boat, and you just warm fuzzies, and
you remind me of the part of that Mike Pence clip in Aaron's montage that I liked the least.
Yeah.
Like, the guy has so little conviction.
Yes.
That he can't even virtue signal and surrender to the spirit of the age without meandering, fumbling for words, stumbling, stuttering. You know why? Because he doesn't even believe what he's saying either.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe that either. He knows that's just complete and total BS. He's just weak. He's just weak. Mike Pence does not believe in live and let live. He's just a puss. He's just weak. That's the reality. He doesn't believe that. He just has no moral courage. So he can't say anything. The only thing Mike Pence has ever been able to do with great conviction is slurp Donald Trump as his VP at every turn. That's all he was able to do. Anytime he's out there on his own, he can't say anything with any conviction because there's very little conviction there.
You keep summing up the American church.
Yeah. Stephanie wants to know what, in my opinion, an RFK Jr. presidency would look like. More lunacy or less? Straight up, I believe they would kill him before he became president. So I'm not even sure how we would know. I think if somehow he won the presidential, first of all, I think if he was on his way to win the nomination, it'd be like when his father was on his way to win the nomination at a hotel one summer night in Los Angeles in 1968. I think we'd all be tweeting hashtag RFK Jr. didn't kill himself. That's what I think. I think whatever you fancy Donald Trump to ultimately be as a disruptor, whatever you project Ron DeSantis ultimately to be as a disruptor, to have somebody with the Kennedy name and the title of Democrat acquire power and completely turn over in his own way, wouldn't necessarily be on all the issues that we would want it turned over on, but he would turn their money changers over on some of the issues, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And he would blow their coalition up. He would blow their political paradigm up in ways DeSantis and Trump simply couldn't, as long as they're called Republicans. He would be the political equivalent of what Tucker is doing right now. Getting 15 million views in 24 hours for everything he puts on Twitter, which is more than he got in an entire week on Fox News with the #1 show. Because now he's broken free. On Fox, he was always going to somewhat be tethered with, well, you're just the right-wing guy. There was always a portion of audience that would never listen to him no matter what he said. That's just the political balkanization, right? But now that he's just Tucker, just a guy named Tucker posted on Twitter, well, there's a wider variety of people that now that you've broken free of the Fox News GOP brand, you can reach a wider chasm of people who have many of the same laments. They're just never becoming Republicans for whatever reason. RFK Jr. would do that. They could not suffer that to live. I'm not just saying that for effect, man. I believe it. They just couldn't suffer Jeffrey Epstein testifying in court. I'm a CIA asset. That's how I acquired all this alleged wealth and got all these celebs to come to my island to build up blackmail material against them. Couldn't suffer that testimony. They couldn't suffer Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony. So somehow she went to prison for sex trafficking to no one. Do we know who she sex trafficked to? She sex trafficked to nobody, apparently. No, they would not suffer an RFK Jr. to live. So I have not pondered what an RFK Jr. presidency would look like because I don't think he would be alive to see it. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, I can't. I've said it's impossible for him to become president. On both sides, there's too many people. Their Overton window, you can't pry it open far enough for them to even accept that reality.
Agreed.
I will come back. More feedback Friday, including some folks wondering about some practical life advice. Where else would you rather go than this show for that, right? Huh? Stay tuned. The parallel economy is on its way. And one of the pioneers in powering this necessary movement is our friends over at Patriot Mobile. They are America's only American wireless phone provider, offering dependable nationwide coverage on all 3 major networks. So you get the best possible service in your area, I should say, without any of the woke stuff, without having to fund anybody who hates you. You don't have to do that any longer. And anytime you move to a different part of town, maybe a different part of the country, and one network is stronger than the other, you can make that switch anytime you want with our friends, for free, by the way, with our friends at Patriot Mobile. Keep your phone. When you make the switch, keep your phone number too, if you want to do that. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Steve or call 878-PATRIOT, 878-PATRIOT, and get a free activation today with the offer code Steve. Ask about their coverage guarantee while you're there. If you're a veteran or first responder, let them know. They'll have extra special ways of saying thank you for your service. Again, patriotmobile.com/Steve or call 878-PATRIOT. patriotmobile.com/Steve or 878-PATRIOT. All right, back to Feedback Friday. Chris writes, I'm 43 years old. I've been listening to your show since the 2020 election. It has brought me on my journey from agnostic to a baby Christian. That's awesome, brother. Thank you. But herein lies my problem. I am married with 2 daughters, ages 13 and 15. My youngest is very eager to learn and read scripture and take the lessons to heart. My oldest, however, gets very angry and upset whenever we bring up God, the scriptures, and even asks, and I even ask her why she doesn't believe in God, or even if I ask her why she doesn't believe in God. How do I go about trying to help her along the path when it is something she appears to get so mad about when it is discussed, without driving her away from the family as a teenager can be prone to do? That is from Chris. Chris, I'm going to give you an answer, and then I'll let Todd, since you've also had a hand in raising even more teenagers than me, or you're going to by the time it's all said and done, okay? Let you chime in on this. I am going to give you an answer, though, that maybe you don't expect. You need to be the scripture. You need to be the scripture. She's 15. Right around the same age, maybe even older, depending on some accounts, that Mary was when she carried the Messiah in her womb. She's biologically adult. She may not fully be mature yet to be one, but biologically, she's an adult. Her creator, by the age of 15, put everything within her that she could go and procreate the species with. So, because of your late conversion, you know the old saying, a prophet has never believed in his old hometown. She knew a different dad than the one you're portraying to her now. And at 15, she's already questioning your credibility on things anyway. Your credibility isn't already an automatic with her anyway. Even under the best of circumstances, that has happened. Around the age of anywhere from 13 to 15 with all 3 of my kids. And I have great relationships with all 3 of them now. But around that exact same time period, I went from the dad who could do no wrong to the dad who constantly had to prove that if he was right. I got really dumb pretty much overnight. That's the way of things, even in the best of circumstances. And now you want to present to her this entirely different metric that probably she only sees as something that is going to limit her. And therefore, you need to actually be those scriptures. You need to start actually modeling the things that you're reading in the scriptures and and keep modeling them. And when you don't, be honest about that. So the changes the positive changes that will be seen in you will be the best possible argument that you could make. Because again, you're a recent convert. It's not like since you were little, you were kind of planting seeds and making these cases and building up that line of belief. This is very, very sudden. So you need to show her that this is sincere. That's my best answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going in the exact same direction. Okay. I mean, I would ask one thing, like, have you, since your conversion, when your daughter reacts like this, have you apologized to her? Because I would start there. Because I would say, listen, I understand. How can I expect more from you right now than when you saw me live most of my life in another way? I have changed, but I know part of the reason you have the doubts and the frustrations you do is because of me. I mean, just that's doing what Steve just said. That's being the scripture. So if you haven't done that, before you even talk to her, I think you should ask yourself, why haven't I done that yet? And I'm not blaming you if you haven't done that, but this is like...
Yeah, you're new at this.
We have different moments, and Steve and I and Aaron all do too. Like when our faith just kneecaps us and like, oh, show me everything. And on other days we're like, I can't take any more, quite frankly. So we get it, but have you apologized? And if you haven't, talk with yourself first. Why? Because she's in... Yeah. Yes. Even in believing households raised from cradle, kids also have these doubts too. But that's not your house. You got to deal with your house and your situation.
Chris, this is hard.
Yes.
What's the old Chesterton line? Many are saying that Christianity has been tried and found to be a failure. When in reality, it's that Christianity has rarely been tried because too many people fail at it or something along those lines. It is hard to finish the race. I mean, I know because I get a lot of your notes and I love them and I'm encouraged by them and they honor me and I appreciate them. But every time Anastasia is on here being a chip off the old block, I get those notes. Understand that 3 years ago at this time, it looked like I was going to have to call Anna and her brother and sister into a room and explain to them why their parents weren't going to be married anymore. Now, 3 years later, I can't even envision possibly having that conversation and how it would have gone. But 3 years ago at this time, Amy and I were contemplating how we were going to have that very conversation. And then that would force me to explain why I was unable to live up to all the stuff that I did teach them from the time that they were young. And why I failed. That's not to say that there would be no coming back from that, or that eventually the kids wouldn't have understood, or maybe not understood, but then come to understand that in a fallen world, perfection's not achievable. Chances are I had built a strong enough relationship with them going into that moment that eventually we would have gotten there, but there would have been some pain on the way there for sure. And maybe some scars that maybe would have never quite healed on the way there, for sure. This is hard, dude. Don't ever let anybody tell you it's anything but. It's difficult. You have signed up to live, in many ways, against your own basic instincts and desires for the rest of your life. That's hard to do. And we can't possibly do it without the Holy Spirit. And so ultimately, when you show her the scriptures, you're showing her God. Because you're only going to be able to do that because of the work God is doing in your life actively.
And if humbling yourself to all this is hard and uncomfortable, remember this. And if you've seen Nefarious, hopefully the visuals help you. Like you're taking your life off of demonic cruise control was cause for the demons to go to war on the things that you love the most. You got more holy. The demons hate that. They're coming after your family. That is the way of things. Now be a bigger man and a better father than you've ever been, and promise yourself, I'm going to fight.
Get in the fight
till I last dying breath.
Yep. Get in that fight. You stepped into the fight now. Now fully embrace that fight. Fully embrace it. All right. I have put this note off for a while because frankly, I'm not sure how to respond. But it is set on I keep a sheet, and I try to accumulate the notes you guys send me that I think are either pithy enough that I could just, put them in here, or I can maybe summarize them, so we can discuss them. And this one has set on my sheet here for a couple of months, which is a long time, But let's try to tackle it here at the end. I've made a lot of bad choices in my younger years. I'm 36 years old, and I live daily with those consequences, and one of them is my marriage. My question is it a sin to not love or respect my husband? He does many things over the course of our marriage to break my trust. Outwardly, I show love and respect. I have forgiven him and fulfill my wifely duties, but I do not trust him. I know he will continue to do hurtful things because he's told me he will. So in order to guard my heart from the hurt he brings, I have hardened my heart, and I have no respect for him. I will add it's been like this from the beginning. I saw the signs shortly after dating him that he would not be the kind of man who treasured my heart, and I was going to break up with him until I found out I was pregnant. And I did not want to share my son, so I stayed. There's a lot of messy details, and I'll add he's never physically cheated on me, but he lives in gray areas. I became a Christian after the birth of my middle son 12 years ago, and I'm struggling with wondering am I living in sin because I feel this way towards my husband? If I am, how do I move forward while still protecting my own heart from hurt? How can I respect someone who I don't trust? We've done counseling. I've done counseling. We've gone to Weekend to Remembers, talked with our pastor. He's done a men's sex addict group. It's all the same. No real change. His salvation is between him and God, but I do all the spiritual training for our sons because he won't. Months ago, you guys asked, where are all the dads? Well, if they're anything like the one I'm married to, they are on their couches watching sports games, yelling at the kids to get out of the way, or napping. Because after all, standing up to fight, it's just not my calling. If I'm lucky enough to have you guys read this, thank you. I'm going to withhold her name. She only gave her first name. I'm not even going to give that. Okay, given how many details are here and how personal this is. I want to first say to you, sadly, you are not alone. Sadly, this story is in many American homes. Sadly, this story is in many American Christian homes. Sadly, because of everything else I just sadly pointed out, that's why we are where we are right now. Frankly, I think one of the reasons a certain element, it's funny with Trump and women. They either absolutely adore him or hate him, kind of like I guess everybody else in a way. I think one of the reasons women and certain wings of Christian women adore him is because they see elements, masculine elements from him they do not see in their own husbands. They just don't see in their own husbands. That's not very comforting, but I want you to know you're not being picked on. It's not unique. Like you started at the beginning saying, I made all these mistakes, and the disciples came to Jesus and said, hey, who sinned so that this man was born blind? Just like no one sinned. Other than, well, no one specifically, everyone sins, but no one specifically sinned to cause this effect. This man was born blind so that the very moment that I came, you could watch me heal him and his sight as further testimony to who I am. So do we reap what we sow? Yes. But trying to retcon this into, I made mistakes and now I'm in my bed and there's nothing I can do about it. There are women who did not make the mistakes that you did that are now that find themselves in this predicament. It is not unique. It's why I go after the men on this show constantly. It is not unique. In the New Testament, Paul does have words for women in your situation, married to unbelievers, what to do. I could summarize them. I mean, hey, if you are in danger, physical danger, we're talking about something different here. But barring that, I could summarize them, but they're also not the most, instantly satisfactory words. In essence, Paul says to endure. Endure the suffering as Christ endured the suffering for you. And maybe through your endurance, you will capture the heart of your husband. My first and most important encouragement to you and other women that are sadly in this predicament is don't let the resentment for your situation put you in a position that you betray your Lord. Don't do that. That you think we can justify certain things because of the situation that I'm in. Amy and I made this mistake. Because of certain things that each of us were not fulfilling in the other, we thought we could justify decisions we were both making. And we made them out of resentment. Resentment, I don't believe, is one of the fruit of the Spirit that Paul lists.
No, it is not.
Love, joy, peace, resentment. Resentment's not one of them? No. But man, it's a natural state of things, is it not?
East of Eden, yes.
Yes. Other than that, and just constantly praying for your man, I honestly don't know what else to do. I don't. And I'm sorry, and that's why I've held off reading this note for so long. We've only got about a minute here, Todd. Anything you want to add?
No, because I'd be lying if I had something other than you pray. It's sad. It's why I talk so much about comfort. This is your husband is like so many men. I mean, you just nailed in terms of your description the things that the bar has just been set so low for modern man.
Yep.
So low. There's no sense of like, I got to do that. I'm not even a good person. I'm just doing it because if I don't, we're not going to survive. There's just an autopilot to this thing called the human race, and it's debilitating, which I just come back. Steve's the most important thing don't, take personal whatever you need to. But other than that, that this problem is legion, and you should not shoulder a burden that is not meant entirely for you.
Ironically, one of the people suffering the most in these kinds of situations are the men who may never fully realize the true purpose and expectation for what was instilled in them and why they were on this earth. And then imagine how tragically it will be for them to learn that after they leave this earth. Right? John 3:17.